What's good, YouTube? LTtvCombatSportsTalk. And before I get started with the video, for those that may be new to this channel, I do content on boxing and mixed martial arts. If that's the type of content that you're into, feel free to hit the sub button. Now, I want to be discussing Danny Garcia and Jose Benavidez Jr. Their fight took place Saturday night. Danny Garcia was victorious in a unanimous decision victory. Now, before I did say that Jose Benavidez Jr. will pull off the upset, but I was wrong about that. And Danny Garcia, he did his thing. Benavidez Jr., on the other hand, he really didn't give Danny too much to really worry about. He kind of just stayed inside the pocket for most of the fight, if not all of it. And he was getting tagged. Now, he did have his moments. And I'm going to say, I think the third or fourth round, Danny, he overcommitted. And he did get caught with a few shots, which rarely happens. Because Danny, his defense is pretty tight. And he doesn't really overextend ever. Because he's a slick counterpuncher. So he's known for catching you and timing you very well. But in that one instance, he overextended and got caught. But it was nothing too major to the point where he was on the point of getting rocked or dropped in the fight. But it's just something that I saw, and it kind of was surprising to me. But overall, it was a good fight, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like at the edge of my seat type of fight, but it was still a good one nonetheless. And what's next for Benavidez Jr.? I really don't know. Benavidez Sr. did say if he didn't make a statement in that fight that Benavidez Jr. career could be over with. I would disagree with that. He's still a good fighter. He's only has 2 losses on his record. The fight before the fight with Danny, it was pretty like a lackluster. So he can still get back on track in his career. He's only 30 years old, so it's not the end of the world. But if Benavidez Jr. decides to walk away, which I doubt, then more power to him. As far as Danny Garcia is concerned, he did say that he wants a rematch with Keith Thurman at 54. I like that fight, me personally, because their first fight a couple years ago, it was entertaining. Keith Thurman ended up winning that fight and took Danny's O away. So in Danny's case, you would want that get back. And I don't fault him for that, really. But he still is the same fighter. His footwork is still slow. And even with a Keith Thurman who's very brittle and has a lot of injuries that come with him, I still think Thurman would beat Danny Garcia at 154. That's just my own personal opinion on that. If Danny hasn't made changes by now, then he loses to Keith Thurman at 147 and at 154. But Tony Harrison was also in attendance, and he did a little interview with Jim Gray discussing the possibility of that fight. And I like that fight as well because Tony Harrison is a former champion. He was the first to beat Jermell Charlo, and he also is a very slick boxer, and his foot speed will give Danny fits. And I do believe that Tony Harrison will probably win that fight by a split decision. So it really just depends what route Danny wants to go. It can go one way or the other. He can choose Tony Harrison, who's already called him out, or he can fight somebody who he's familiar with in Keith Thurman. It just depends on what route is available and what makes the most sense. Now, me personally, I do believe the Tony Harrison fight is a fight that would make sense because he's been in that division for a long time and he won a belt at 54 and he's still a top 154 pounder. So he's right there in that title mix as well. So if Danny wants to stay at 54, him and Harrison sometime later this year or early 2023, that is a fight that makes sense in my eyes. So in conclusion, I want to get you guys' thoughts. How did you feel about Danny's performance? Do you believe that he can hang with those at junior middleweight? And my last question to you guys is, do you feel that he can win a belt at junior middleweight? Let me know you guys' answers in the comment sections down below. And that's going to conclude this video. If you liked and enjoyed it, hit that like, that sub button, hit that bell, and click also. You never miss any of my videos, and you will see all of my notifications. I'm LTTV Combat Sports Talk. I'm out here. Peace.